Avoid mirrors. If you do see your reflection somewhere, do not smile. In case you start crying uncontrollably, sit down on the ground. Don't touch anyone that is crying. If you notice blood on your face, do not wash it off. If you notice new people, whistle. If they are real, they will whistle back. This includes, start whistling when you hear somebody from the group doing it. Don't look into the fire for longer than a few seconds. Okay man, listen. I get you're a little freaked out, but I promise it'll be grand. Jake's parents are rich as hell, so it won't be regular camping. Him and his other friends set up some next level stuff. And this chick Lexi is some sort of shaman who does these things all the time. She'll guide us through the whole thing and we'll be there together. This was about a week ago when Nick, my college roommate and best friend, invited me to join him and some guy he knew from one of his courses to go on a psychedelic camping trip. He called it a last hurrah before we finish school and become real as adults. I don't even know this guy. Won't it be weird? Nah, he told me that I could bring anyone that I liked. Some people canceled last minute and now they have an extra tent. And honestly, he's super chill. Not a snob at all. I really hesitated saying yes, especially because I had never taken LSD before. Jake or his workers had already assembled the ground. We were set up next to a little lake. 4 teepees were formed to a half circle around it, and in the middle there was a big fireplace. There was even a small hut with a little kitchen and a bathroom. The insides of the teepee that I was sharing with Nick looked like a small hotel room. I gotta say, it was pretty freaking cool. After throwing our stuff in the tents and going through short introductions, we all sat around the fireplace, which wasn't lit up yet, and listened to Lexi, our guide for the weekend. With her pink braided hair and feathered dress, she looked exactly like I would have imagined a psychedelic guide. Alright, these are the important points. I know some of them sound a little weird and maybe it's not important, but better safe than sorry, right? She glanced over and gave me a smirk. I felt my face flush. I had told her earlier that I was a little freaked out because I usually never take drugs. Listening to these weird-ass rules didn't particularly help. And I think it's better if we all leave our phones in one of the tents. They can get a little bit distracting. Just try to memorize them or write them down on your arm or something. Jake added. If you saw him, you'd probably think he was a typical frat guy, with his short brown hair, freshly shaved face, and polo shirt. Not someone that has his own guru and refers to tarot cards for life advice. Okay, wait, I don't get it. Won't we lose track of time? How am I supposed to know when a few seconds have passed? One of the girls said. Lisa, with her dark hair and all-black wardrobe, was a real contrast to her friend April, who had freckles all over her face and was wearing a bright yellow summer dress. Just don't look into the fire at all, Joshua responded, and laughed as if this was the funniest joke on earth. There was something a little weird about this guy, but from what I had heard, he's been friends with Jake since preschool. Okay everyone, just have a chill mindset and it'll be totally fine, Jake said as he nodded over to Lexi, who started handing out little pieces of blotting paper. I took a look at the little clown face on the paper, with a weird feeling in my stomach, but then I just followed the rest and I let it dissolve on my tongue. Here we go, Nick said and grinned. He leaned over to me and whispered, Don't forget the rules. Shit, the rules. I didn't know how important they were, but I figured it was better to keep them in mind just to be safe. I grabbed a marker and I wrote the following things on my left arm. No mirror. No touching while crying. Don't look at the fire. Don't wash off blood. Whistle. On the other arm, I wrote down 6 for the number of people present besides me, and the time, 8:15. I hope I would still be able to understand what I meant by these things, but I figured that I just had to remember that Lexi was here to support us and that she was sober. It'll be fine, I whispered to myself. First time, huh? April looked over and grinned. I was just about to respond when her hair started burning. It was literally on fire and the flame kept growing, making her appear somewhat demonic. I closed my eyes and told myself that I'm imagining this. Isn't the heat beautiful? She laughed as I looked at her again. I noticed that her eyes had lost all color. They had morphed into white, empty holes. I swallowed. I didn't realize that it would kick in so fast. How long had it been since I took the little clown? About 2 hours. Someone laughed next to me. It sounded like Nick. I turned to where the voice was coming from and I almost screamed. He had clown makeup all over his face. Was that face paint? I went over his forehead with my finger. It was white paint. What the hell? I thought. Also, did he just read my mind? I got up from where I was sitting to grab a bottle of water from our tent. I had to be alone for a moment. Yo man, clever writing that stuff on your arms. You probably won't need it though. Except for the mirror thing, that can be creepy. Nick? What the hell? I blurted out. When did you get in the tent? You were sitting by the fire. Dude, calm down. You literally just followed me in here. I wanted to grab a jacket before the fun started to kick in. He interrupted me. You're not feeling anything yet? I started shaking. This was really freaky. This must be what losing your mind feels like. Course not. We took the stuff like 3 minutes ago. Are you alright? Nick looked completely normal and I felt sober again. Yeah, I lied and I grabbed the bottle of water. I felt really on edge and looking at Nick was creeping me out even more. And so I decided to go back outside and to talk to Lexi. I walked out into the grass and as I looked up, I realized that the sun had turned pitch black. And this wasn't making any sense. The sun was just about to go down and now it looked like it was in the middle of the night. I shoved the thoughts aside. That one girl did say you lose track of time. Maybe my mind was just not receiving information in the right order. I had to stay calm. The fire in the middle was lit up and the flames were shining bright. I decided to walk up to one of the other tents so I wouldn't look at it for too long. But then I noticed someone sitting in front of it. The only person outside. Almost automatically, I walked up to her, but it was weird. I didn't recognize her. Whistle. Shit, I sucked at whistling. I somehow tried to get out a sound when the girl turned around towards me and said, "That's okay, I suck at whistling too. It's a weird rule anyway, right?" "Yeah, sorry, but who are you?" "Lisa, we met already." She laughed. I remember distinctly that Lisa had black hair. This girl was blonde. I was legit losing my mind. "Right, sorry. I think the acid is hitting harder than I'd imagined." I laughed nervously. Everything else looked normal. This was strange. I sat down next to her, making sure my face wasn't pointed towards the fire. "Acid? What are you talking about? Jake promised we wouldn't do this anymore." "Do what? Take drugs?" I laughed. "Hey man, who are you talking to?" I turned around to see Nick walking towards me with a black-haired girl. Lisa. The Lisa that I had met earlier. I turned to my left again where the girl was sitting, but she had disappeared. I already hated this trip. I was about to say something when I noticed Jake, Joshua, and Lexi coming out of one of the tents. Alright, all the phones are gone and it's finally dark. I can't wait for this to kick in, Jake said, and he let himself fall to the ground next to us. Now that we're all complete, I thought we could tell some stories or... Complete? Isn't one person missing? I pointed at the number 6 on my arm. Yes, we're 6 people. Me, Nick, Lisa, Jake, Joshua, and you, Lexi said while pointing at each person respectively. No, I counted 6 without me. We should be 7, I said. Dude, we have 3 tents for 2 people each. We're 6, Joshua chimed in. He was right, there were only 3 tents. I was certain that there had been 4 earlier. And then I saw that girl with the fire hair. Fire hair. I felt like I was going insane, and I felt like a real rookie in this group. I knew that I could trust Lexi because she was the only one that hadn't taken anything, so I figured to just let it go. I needed to relax a bit more, or this would turn into a horror trip. I'm not sure what happened for the rest of the night. I was feeling pretty woozy when I got up in the morning. I think we played some games and talked, but I had some major gaps in my memory. I was lying in the tent, hearing Nick snoring in the bed next to me. I took a deep breath in. Everything seemed normal. I felt normal. The effects must have worn off. I sighed in relief. This was the first and last time that I would try LSD. I grabbed a sweater, put on some shoes, and I walked outside where I saw Joshua, along with Lexi and Lisa sitting around a table. Good morning, sunshine, you sleep well? Joshua shouted. I guess so. I mumbled and I took a seat next to them. I was still feeling a bit groggy from last night. Yo, is Nick the only one still asleep? Jake was standing behind me with a can of coffee in his hand. I hadn't even noticed him approaching. I looked around. April wasn't there. I wanted to say something, but I decided not to. Not after the conversation of yesterday. Maybe I had honestly imagined her or something. I told myself that I would try to look her up online as soon as I had my phone back. Oh, hey Jake, can I get my phone? I want to check something, I said. I don't have your phone. I want to collect them in a bit though, so take care of whatever you need now. Hey, finally, morning sleeping beauty. He was talking to Nick, who slowly shuffled towards the table, mumbling something inaudible in a grumpy tone. He had never been a morning person. Jake got up out of his chair and started speaking. Great, everyone is awake. I thought after having some breakfast, we could explore the area a little. Or you can chill for a bit, whatever you prefer. Lexi explained everything yesterday, so I think after dinner, we can start our trip. He smiled while holding up a little bag containing the papers with clown faces. I thought we had finished those yesterday. Were they honestly planning to repeat last night? I stayed quiet. I didn't feel like being the buzzkill of the group so early in the morning. Back in the tent, I asked Nick if he was really planning on doing this again. Again? What are you talking about? I thought you've never done this. He shot me a confused look. I did yesterday, and that was more than enough. Sorry, man, but this really sucks. I was getting a little fed up with him. Okay, no idea what you're talking about. We only spent yesterday telling stories around the fireplace. Don't you remember? We wanted to do acid today so we would have the whole day and night. He laughed. Okay, I'm gonna go take a shower. Maybe you should take another nap or something. You seem kinda out of it. He grabbed a towel and he walked out. This wasn't making any sense. I started wondering whether I had dreamt the events of last night. I was definitely not high right now, and everybody else seemed normal. It would have also explained why I had imagined an extra person. I sat on the bed, thoughts racing through my head. I rolled up the sleeve of my sweater and that's when I saw the rules that I had written down yesterday. I closed my eyes, swallowed, and then I opened them back up to take a look at my other arm. 6, 8:15. I definitely wrote those down after swallowing down the piece of paper with the clown face. What were they trying to hide from me? You're probably wondering why the hell I didn't get out of there. Why I was planning to spend another day in camping hell. For starters, I had no idea how to. I came here with Nick, who was completely oblivious to anything being strange. And moreover, we were in the middle of nowhere and without a car. I had no chance of getting very far. I did think about calling someone, but what was I supposed to tell them? That I took acid and I was seeing ghost people. Well, I did keep it as an option, but to be completely honest, I was also really curious about what was going on. My investigative mind felt the urge to figure this out. For the sake of my sanity, I told myself. The others had gone exploring the forest around us, while Lisa and I were the only ones who stayed at the base. She had gone back to her tent to sleep a little bit. Apparently her and Joshua, who she shared a tent with, had been awake all night. Of course I knew that she had been sharing a tent with April the other night, but as I was the only one who remembered her even existing, I didn't say anything. I had to take advantage of this quiet moment while I still had my phone so I could look April up online. I had to know if she was real. I didn't get too far though, only knowing her name and the school that she goes to. And so I checked Jake's Instagram to see if either her or Lisa were somewhere in his follower list or feed. I couldn't find either, but what I did see made my heart skip a beat. Jake had posted a selfie about 2 years ago at this exact same place. Or at least I think it was the same place because I saw a TV in the background. And the weird part, however, was who else was in this photo. I know that it was dark last night and that I was tripping, but I was certain that I had seen this exact blonde girl sitting in front of the fire. The other Lisa. And this seemed too much of a coincidence, but she wasn't tagged. And I didn't know where else to find her, or what this information meant exactly. My battery was almost empty, and so I walked over to the hut to charge it. As the complete idiot that I am, I thought it would be fine to leave it charging in the kitchen while I went to take a shower. When I came out of the bathroom, my phone had disappeared. I ran over to the tent of Lisa, thinking she was the only one around, but she was fast asleep. Of course, there was the option that she took it and ran back quickly, but I was only showering for like 5 minutes. Realizing that I was literally staring at a random girl sleeping, I made my way back to my own tent, thinking that I could just ask Nick for his phone when he came back. For now, I had to rewrite the rules on my arm. The water had washed off most of it. On my other arm I wrote down a 1 next to the time and I made a circle around it. I wasn't planning to take any other drugs today, but just in case, I wanted to keep all their information clear. Hey, what are you doing there? I turned around to see Lexi standing in the doorway of the teepee. Oh, I figured I would write down the rules just to be safe, I said while hiding my other arm. I'm glad you're actually taking them seriously. The others don't seem to. Speaking of the others, weren't you guys exploring? Yes. Her eyes started sparkling. I showed them my favorite part of the forest. They're still there, but I thought I would come back and get dinner ready. You want to help? I have to admit that I was feeling pretty paranoid, which is why helping with dinner sounded perfect. I would be able to talk to this so-called shaman and simultaneously make sure she wasn't putting anything inside of our food. So, how often do you guys do this trip? I casually asked while chopping up tomatoes for the pasta salad. I met Jake while hiking in the woods here a few years ago. We got along right away and planned the first trip. After that, we made sure to come back at least once a year. Always with the same people. Some of them come back each year, but there are always a couple of new faces as well. And this year She stopped talking as we heard some noises coming from outside of the hut. "Oh great, they're back," Lexi said. "Let's have dinner so we can get started before it gets dark." I hadn't realized how fast the time had passed. We finished the last few things and brought the food outside. The rest of the group was already sitting around the table. After eating and chatting for a while, Jake started lighting up the fireplace again. "Let's make things cozy and then we can get started. It sound good?" Everyone started cheering. I was hoping to have a moment alone with Nick, but he didn't leave the group for even a second. After repeating the rules once more, Lexi started handing out the little clown faces again. I made sure nobody was watching as I let mine disappear in the pocket of my hoodie. "Yo, I'm just gonna grab a jacket real quick," Nick said and got up. This was my moment. I followed him into the teepee. "Hey man, I need your phone, real quick." "I don't have it. Jake locked them up, remember?" he said. Of course. This would have been too easy otherwise. I started wondering why Jake never asked for my phone, as if he knew that somebody had taken it. "What time is it?" I asked. Nick took a look at his watch and said, 8:12, why? I grabbed the marker and I wrote down the time on his arm and added the number 6. If it was on his arm as well, maybe it would make more sense. "All right now." I stopped speaking as I saw his face. It was dripping. His entire face was dripping, as if it were wax melting from his skull. My heart started racing, but Nick just laughed and laughed. I took one look at the ground, where drops of his flesh were slowly forming a puddle. It was mixed with face paint. This was too much for me. I stumbled back out of the tent. I felt like I was tripping again, but it wasn't possible. I kept telling myself that this wasn't possible. When I noticed somebody sitting in front of the fire, I couldn't tell who it was and it didn't matter to me. I had to be alone. I ran to the bathroom and I locked myself in. As I was standing in front of the sink, looking into the mirror, I remembered the rule. Avoid mirrors. If you do see your reflection somewhere, do not smile. At this point, I didn't believe those rules had anything to do with the acid anymore, but something inside my gut was shouting to stick to them. It was the only way to get out of this madness. I closed my eyes and I buried my face in my hands. It felt sticky. I closed my eyes again and I noticed red on my hands. Blood. I took a deep breath. I would look into the mirror just for a second, just to see if my skin was bleeding or melting, just like Nick's. I told myself I would be fine as long as I didn't smile. My face was bleeding, but that wasn't the worst part. I was not alone. To my left, I saw Lisa, dark-haired Lisa dressed in black. And to my right was another girl, one that I hadn't seen before. I was about to say something when I realized that they weren't looking at me. They were staring at their reflections, big grins on their faces. I quickly turned around, but they were already gone. I kept telling myself that this wasn't real, that I was imagining it, but deep down, I knew this wasn't making sense. I had felt clear the entire day. I hadn't taken anything else. I felt normal, as normal as one could feel in a situation like this. I took another deep breath and I walked back outside, thinking that maybe Lexi or Jake had put something in the food after all. "Dude, what the hell?" Nick was standing in front of me, face back to normal. I just kept staring at him. "Whoa, I think I'm going mad," he laughed. "I could swear you were just sitting in our tent, crying your eyes out." "Did you touch me?" I asked. "Are you kidding? I kept shaking you, no response at all." "Maybe it was someone else, but I was so sure it." "Okay, I'm actually feeling weird. I'm gonna go look for the pink-haired chick." And just like that, he disappeared into one of the tents. I wanted to follow him, but I felt glued to my spot. I was shaking. I let myself fall to the ground, now actually feeling like crying, but I didn't. Instead, I just closed my eyes and I prayed that this would be over soon. What I saw when I opened my eyes will be engraved into my mind for the rest of my life. The fire that had been lit up earlier had grown 3 times its initial size, and there was a group of people dancing around it while holding each other's hands. I squinted. Something about that fire seemed off, and that's when I noticed her. She was inside of the flames, and it looked like she was trying to fight her way out of it. April. There must have been about 10 figures there just dancing, not even paying attention to her. Both of the Lisas that we came here with, the blonde one that I saw yesterday, and a bunch of people that I had never seen before. No Jake, no Lexi, no Joshua. Absolutely nothing was making sense. If you notice new people, whistle. If they are real, they will whistle back. I had to try it. My lips were trembling, but somehow I got a sound out. In that moment, the entire group turned towards me. I could see it now. Their eyes weren't closed. They were empty. I started wondering how long I had been looking at the fire when I heard the sound of a sharp whistle behind me. It was Joshua. He grabbed my arm and he pulled me inside the teepee. "Stay in here," he shouted, and he ran back outside. I stayed in this tent for the rest of the night. Joshua didn't come back. I didn't dare to go outside, but I heard noises all night long. They were out there. I don't know how much time had passed, but all of a sudden, it was quiet again. I took up all of my courage and I walked outside. The sun was coming up. The fire had extinguished and there was nobody around. I decided to walk back to my tent and to look for Nick. I felt like a coward for not checking up on him last night. And that's when I realized that it was gone. Our tent had disappeared. I was just staring at those 2 single teepees in front of me, at the place where 2 days ago there had definitely been 4. 4 teepees for 7 people. If it had only been for the tents, everything would have seemed fine. Except, 3 people were missing, and nobody but me seemed to notice. Jake and Lexi were sitting around the table, having breakfast and chatting about nonsense while I was completely freaked out on the inside. I made my way over to them and I asked, "Where is everyone?" I felt like shouting or throwing stuff, but I told myself to stay cool for now. I was certain that they had drugged me last night without my knowledge. These people were freaking horrible. All I wanted at this point was to find Nick and get the hell out of there, but I knew that starting a fight wouldn't help. "Well, we're here," Jake chuckled. "You are right now, and Joshua went into the woods or something. What about the rest? Where's Nick?" He shot Lexi a quick look, and then turned towards me and said in a soothing voice, "Probably at home, I guess. Are you okay, man?" "No, I'm not okay. Are you telling me Nick just left without me?" I felt my confusion turning into anger. I was so sick of this place. Lexi got up and slowly walked towards me. "Matt, you seem a little out of yourself. Nick didn't join us for the weekend. He got sick and he bailed last second. Remember, you drove here with Jake." She pointed over to the only car standing there behind the tents. I didn't remember a car. Nick's had been here as well, I wondered. I really couldn't remember. Maybe you should get some rest. Joshua should be back soon and we can have a little picnic in the woods. No, this isn't right. I pointed at the smudged off 6 on my arm. We were more people. April, Lisa, Nick. Where are they? I started shouting at last. April, you mentioned that name before, but neither of us know this person. She glanced over at Jake. There is also an 8 and a circled 1 there. I really think you should get some rest, she said while rubbing over the numbers on my arm, smudging them even more. Rest. Forget rest. I needed to figure out where my friend was. I pulled my arm away from her and walked off, getting faster and faster until I was finally running, right into the forest. I heard Jake shouting something from afar, but I just ignored it. I had to get away from them. As I was walking through the trees, where everything looked the same, I started wondering if this had been such a good idea. I let myself fall off to the ground and buried my face in my hands. I had to somehow make sense of the events of the previous nights. I started thinking about the rules again. April was staring into the fire, and so was the blonde Lisa, but my brain cannot comprehend how I was able to see her. She is a real person. I saw her on Jake's Instagram, but I had never seen her before this weekend. How did my mind go there? Don't look into the fire for longer than a few seconds. What about the dark-haired Lisa? She was there yesterday. I watched her sleep. The last time I saw her, though, was when she was creepily smiling at her reflections in the bathroom, breaking another one of the rules. Avoid mirrors. If you do see your reflection somewhere, do not smile. What about Nick? I had seen him twice last night. Once when his face was melting off. A shudder went down my spine as I thought back to that moment. Something about him seemed so off. And what was it about that face paint? I started wondering whether it was my mind mixing up the image of the clown paper in him. But there was something else. He mentioned that he had saw me crying, of which I have no memory at all. I had been locked inside of the bathroom, but he claimed that he shook me and got no response. In case you start crying uncontrollably, sit down on the ground. Don't touch anyone that is crying. Had Nick unknowingly broken a rule? From what my shattered mindset can analyze at the moment, the only thing that was consistent is that all of them broke a rule, and the next day they disappeared along with their tents, and for some reason, I was the only one who remembered them being there. What about Joshua? He hadn't come back last night, but Jake and Lexi did say that he was still somewhere around. If you notice new people, whistle. If they are real, they will whistle back. This includes, start whistling when you hear somebody from the group doing it. He whistled. Even more so, he was the only one that whistled back last night. Were those other people I saw not real? I let out a deep sigh. Obviously those figures weren't real, and they didn't even have eyes. My head started hurting. I wanted to believe them, to think that I had joined this weekend on my own, that I was still tripping and that I would be on my way back home soon where Nick would be lying in our room. I hadn't taken any psychedelics before, but I knew that none of this was right. This is not how you feel on drugs. Maybe this is how you feel during psychosis, but even that didn't make sense. I looked at these smudged 6 on my arm. Those were the initial 6 people that I came here with, of which 3 had gone missing. This was reality. A sick, vile form of reality. But I was awake. I was sober and conscious. Stuck in the forest that seemed to swallow people and spit them out at night. Or maybe those 2 were a part of some cult. I honestly don't know, and I was scared to find out. For now, all I knew was that I couldn't trust Jake. I definitely couldn't trust this so-called pink-haired shaman. Maybe I could trust Joshua. I wasn't feeling too great about this thought, but it was the only option that seemed somehow realistic. But I didn't even know where he was. I don't know how long I had been gone for or where exactly I was, but the sun was slowly going down. At that moment, I couldn't decide whether being alone in a forest at night was better, or being at that campsite with Lexi and Jake. That's when my thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a whisper. "Don't trust them." It sounded like Nick. I looked up, but I couldn't see him. "Matt, it's getting dark. Listen to me. You are not on drugs. This is real. The rules are real. She had to tell you about them, but they will try and trick you into breaking them." "Nick?" I whispered. The voice sounded close, like he was in front of me, but I couldn't see him. "You have to pay attention. If you break the rules at night, you can never leave. Don't believe anything you see. You have to get out." And just like that, he was gone. In that moment, I just snapped. The events of the last days had been mentally draining me. I had no car, no phone, no allies. I started crying uncontrollably on the moist forest ground when I felt someone touching my shoulder and shaking me. "Nick," I thought. I looked up, my vision blurred from the tears. I could make up a bearded face, a man with long hair. "Joshua," I exclaimed. "Wait, you can't touch me, I'm crying." My breathing got heavier. I felt like a maniac. "Shh," he whispered. "It's okay. The rules only come to play at night. You are fine for now. Get up and come with me." He held his hand over to help me, and I numbly followed him through the forest. I walked all the way to a small open area inside the woods, where a big circle of stones was arranged around a big old tree. Joshua stepped into the circle and gestured for me to follow him inside towards the tree. "What the hell?" I said as I saw what he was pointing at. "Look familiar?" he asked. I squinted my eyes. The evening light made it difficult to recognize anything. It were the rules that Lexi told us about on that first night, engraved into the bark. Not those exact words, but it was close enough. My brain felt completely fried. Is this some sick prank? I'm really done with this bullshit. He looked at me with a dead serious look on his face. "Did you break any of them?" "I don't think so," I said. "Neither did I, or Jake or Lexi. Actually, they weren't even around much at night. Did you not notice that?" he asked. That was kind of hard while losing my mind at the same time. "You weren't losing your mind, man, don't you understand? It's this place. It tried to make you fail. Just like Lisa, April, Nick, and..." He stopped talking and took a deep breath in before he continued. "I'm still trying to figure things out. It has something to do with a girl, Lexi or whatever her real name is, and with Jake, whose family owns this cursed godforsaken ground." This sounded completely ridiculous. I wanted to say something, but I had witnessed weirder things in the last couple days. "Alright, man, how exactly did you figure this out?" I said after thinking for a little while. "Lisa." His eyes started to tear up. "Not the one that we came here with. She just happens to have the same name. My girlfriend. She joined Jake on a camping trip 2 years ago and never came back. They sold her death to us as a fatal car wreck." He banged his fist against the tree. "That's what they do every time. They make it go away with money. Nobody realizes that it is always connected to this forest. I didn't either at first." He took a deep breath and continued. "It had been 2 years and I needed closure. And that's why I said yes when he invited me. Wait, I chimed in. Why did you act like you didn't remember April being here? Why did everyone forget her? I have no idea. I had honestly forgotten. I don't know why you didn't. But you remember now. He closed his eyes. Last night, after I brought you to the tent, I went out again. I thought I saw someone in the woods and I followed them to this place. It was her, Lisa. My Lisa. She warned me. Could this be the same girl that I saw? I wondered. What did she look like? Exactly how she did before she went missing. Rosy cheeks, long blonde hair, a big bright smile. He clenched his fists together. But her blue eyes, they were gone, turned into empty holes. Had Joshua talked to Lisa the way Nick had talked to me? Joshua looked up and pointed his finger towards the branches of the tree. Just like that. There she was, Lisa with the long blonde hair. And April in the yellow summer dress, the other Lisa in all black, and my roommate Nick, together with the people that I saw last night, lifelessly hanging from the tree with a rope tied around each of their necks, all of their eyes open voids. My heart started racing. I felt like throwing up. I gagged and I forced myself to look away. There was no way that we were imagining the same thing. Only then did I notice the bottle of gasoline in Joshua's hand. I still don't know how we pulled this off. The tree was in flames. For some reason, it did not catch on to anything else though, as if it was protected in the circle. Jake and Lexi must have noticed because I heard her loud screams inside of the forest. We used that moment to get Jake's car and drove off, not daring to speak or look at each other until we had made it back to campus. Nick wasn't there. He never came back. I never saw Jake again either. There was no investigation on the disappearance of Nick, Lisa, or April. I believe Jake's parents sold it off as another drunken car wreck. Sometimes I wonder if we had stopped it all by burning the tree. But something inside of me tells me that we only made it angrier. Every night, I feel like something is trying to pull me back. Something telling me my friend is still there, and that I should pay him a visit. And if I'm honest, I would love to see that big, warm fire again.